Wrapping up the year 2021 with Nancy Sathre-Vogel, whom I appreciate her time available to talk to the Omarglobal radio audience. She refers in this chat to the political events in the United States, her country, that marked the first year of the Biden administration, among other things. Thank you, Nancy, from Idaho. The significance of this year for the United States of America, considering that January 20 was the first, the inauguration of Biden administration. So new governments, so far, so good?
Oh, boy, I think my personal feeling is that Biden was handed just unprecedented level of crisis. COVID was completely out of control, and the Trump administration had actively encouraged that. They thought, because initially when COVID broke out, it was hitting the Democratic cities. It was hitting the large cities, New York City, San Francisco, it was hitting those cities that are more liberal. And so they were like, oh, well, these large cities, they're Democratic strongholds. As long as COVID just, is going to hit these areas, then we will encourage it to go, because they knew that the Republican base is more rural. The Republican base tends to live in the small, more rural communities. And so I think they thought at the beginning that, COVID's not going to affect our voters, so we will encourage it to get out of control. And that's not what ended up happening. And so then by the time Biden took over, it was just rampant spread, control all over, blue states, red states, rural, urban, it was everywhere. And then all of a sudden Biden comes in and he's faced with that. On top of that, there was this, the economic fallout, which again, the entire world is dealing with this. I mean, how do you shut down an entire economy and then try to bring it back to life? Like, that is not something you do. And so we had, in addition to the COVID crisis, we had the economic crisis. And then, as you know, the U.S. has been going through this racial reckoning with the Black Lives Matter movement. And so there's all of this racial tension. So that's another crisis this country is dealing with. And then there's climate change, which is yet another crisis. So when Biden took office, he was faced with just catastrophic levels of crises. And I think he has done as good a job as anybody could have done. I mean, I know that people will complain that COVID is still rampant, which is true. It's rampant around the world. If Republicans had been taking it seriously from the beginning, with Omicron, that might have spiraled out of control anyway, but at least prior to that, I think we could have had it more or less controlled. But because we have this large segment of our population that refuses to get vaccinated or refuses to take it seriously, then that's out of control. The economy, again, just a remarkable comeback. We're not where we need to be, and Biden will be the first to tell you that we're not where we need to be, but we've made tremendous progress. The racial reckoning, we're still, I don't see a lot of movement on that. I do see a few things around the edges. We now have this voting rights crisis that Republican states across the nation are putting in voter suppression laws to try to steal the election next time. And again, you know, Biden is finally it sounds like he is sort of opening his eyes now and realizing that that is a crisis that needs to be dealt with. But again, when there's just this unprecedented, and in the middle of all of that, he ended a 20-year war in Afghanistan. So I just feel like I am so thankful that we have Biden as president right now. I know he's not perfect. I know not everything has gone perfectly, but he has the experience, he has the temperament, he has the connections, he knows people. He knows who the good, capable people are, and he's not afraid to delegate and say, hey, you're in charge of this and you're in charge of that. And that's what we need. And so if I understand that the United States is just in the throes of so many different crises, but at least we have a capable leader at the helm. So.
There was elections, I think it was in New Jersey, Kentucky, somewhere, and the Republican beat the Democrats, and somewhere. That was surprise you?
That was actually, so those two states, it's New Jersey and Delaware, maybe. I don't remember.
I don't remember too, yeah.
Yeah, they do have their governor elections in the off years, and generally speaking, almost always, whichever party wins the presidency, the other party wins both of those governorships. And in that's the case if you go back like 40 years. So if a Democrat wins for the president, Republicans win for the governor in those two states. If a Republican wins for president, Democrats win for those two states. That's just kind of the standard of how it generally works. So you can generally predict which party's going to win those governorships based on who won the presidency. And so this time, one of them went Republican and one of them went Democrat. So it was actually, if we followed the tradition, they both would have gone Republican, and only one of them did. So I actually think that even though the Democrats did lose that one race, I actually think the fact that they kept the Democrat in the other state is a good sign. I think there's a lot of energy on the Democratic side. And, I hope so. I hope we can beat back this authoritarian push.
Everything is under control. Basically, what I want to say is that those people who left last year will not come back in 4 years' time, eh?
There's a very real, I don't think those individual people will necessarily come back. I know Trump is talking about running for president. My personal feeling is that I don't think he will be healthy enough to be able to run. But Trumpism is a huge threat. I believed that if we could defeat Trump, and I knew Trumpism would still be around, but I believed that if we could defeat Trump, then Trumpism would be weakened. And that's not what happened. Trumpism actually got stronger. The nation spoke out very clearly. Biden won by 7 million votes. And yet, even though the American people shouted very loudly and very clearly that we didn't want Trumpism, the whole Trumpism movement has actually gotten stronger. and they are a very serious threat, extremely seriously. What they've done is they're not focusing so much on the national level. They have moved to the local levels. They are trying to take over the boards of education so that they can put in their warped educational curriculums. They are, here in Idaho, we have on our health, our Ada County, well, it's actually more than just this county, but this whole region, the health board, or I don't know what it's called, the health agency that kind of oversees the entire health organization of this area, and they actually got appointed this so-called doctor who is a conspiracy theorist. He's out there pushing hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and vitamin C, and you know, and he's now officially on the Idaho State Health Advisory Committee.
Whoa.
And so what the Trumpists have done is storm the Capitol again. Like, they would never get away with that again. They did it once. They tried this coup. They tried to forcibly take over the federal government, and that has failed. And I don't think they would try that again. I just think that everybody is now I mean, I don't think they'd even get anywhere near the Capitol building if they tried it again. But they're running for Secretary of State in all these different states, because the Secretary of State is the person in charge of running elections. And the Secretary of State is the one in charge of the group that is counting the elections. They're trying to change the state laws so that instead of the election committee counting the votes and saying person X got more votes, therefore person X won, they're literally changing the laws to say, well, if we don't like person X, if we don't like the person that got the most votes, well, then we can just throw that out, and we can have our legislators say who's going to be who's going to win in the state. So they're literally changing the laws so that they can override the will of the people. So they will still let people vote. Well, they will suppress the vote as much as they can, but the people who are able to vote, they will let them vote. But then if they don't like the way the people vote, they're just going to say, but we're going to throw out the votes anyway. And they will be able to do it legally because they are working at that state by state by state level and getting these crazies in key positions in the state. And so, I mean, it's a very real threat, very, very, very real threat. And I honestly can't tell you, in 5 years, will we still have a democracy? I'd say it's a 50-50 chance right now.
The midterm election is coming up, and so that will be the big test for the Democratic, I suppose. Huh?
Yeah. I mean, we are. There's somebody, I don't even know who it is. I just heard the recording of it. I don't even know who the person was that said it, but he said throughout history there have been times when the people of that time had faced a situation they never ever dreamed they would face, and they had to rise up and protect democracy, or whatever it is. It's on your shoulders, and you either act or you lose it. And that's where we're at. We don't have the luxury right now of, I mean, we, society, the American society, we either step up to the plate and we do what it takes to save democracy, or we will lose it. And we are at that point right now. And that really hit me. You know, you always hear about these throughout history, these crucial time periods where, you know, this person stepped up and did this, and, you know, and the people rallied around and they saved the day, or, you know, whatever. And we really are in one of those moments. This moment right now, when we look back on the history of the United States of America, 200 years from now, this moment right now will be in the history books. What we do right now will either make or break this American experiment.
Kamala Harris was named as a vice president. I thought, wow, that she will be the next U.S. president. What do you think?
I like Kamala Harris. I think she's very capable. I think she's very, very strong. She is a strong leader. I'm not convinced that America is ready yet for a woman president. There is so much sexism in America. It blows my mind. I mean, Pakistan has had female leaders. You know, it just blows my mind that America still has not had a female president. Women in this country are treated differently, and you probably heard all of the reports about Kamala and people don't like her and blah, 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 blah. My personal feeling in that one is that that's just that sexism. She is a very strong leader, and if a man were to do the exact same things that Kamala Harris does, that man would be viewed as a strong leader, and he's a good leader and taking control. And yet when a woman does the exact same thing, she's viewed as bossy and bitchy and whatever. So I kind of just dismiss all of that kind of stuff. Will Kamala be the next president? I don't know. I mean, it's not unheard of in America that the vice president goes on to become president. It has happened, but it is not a given. And so, you know, I don't have any idea whatsoever where that's going to go. I think she's doing fine. I think she's been given some tasks. And again, you know, we were looking at just unprecedented levels of crisis. The border crisis that Trump, I'm not going to say he created it, but he didn't handle it well, with him separating families and caging all the babies and all of that. That added a whole new level of crisis to the border situation, and Kamala Harris was put in charge of the border and trying to figure out what to do. So again, you know, she was given a crisis that had been turned into a tragedy by the previous administration. And I think she has done as good a job as she could possibly have done to turn it around. But again, there's only so much you can do. We are going to be seeing worldwide, and it's not just going to be the U.S., but as climate change gets more and more extreme, worldwide, we're going to be seeing unprecedented levels of migration. People are they're going to have no choice but to leave their homes because of drought, food won't grow, or because of just massive flooding over and over and over and over and over again. At some point, you can't live there anymore. I mean, it's, as climate change gets worse, we are going to see these just unprecedented levels of migration. And worldwide, we need to figure out how to deal with that because it's going to happen. So I'm not going to say that Kamala Harris has it under control. I don't know that anybody could have it under control, but it is something that we need to be planning for and making arrangements for and working on, and we need to be doing that now.
Everything what you said is making sense as well, but at the same time, I'm always thinking about the word uncertainty. Everything is changing. Everything is so unprecedented, and in this context, it's quite difficult to have some thought about what could happen in the future. Anyways,
well, that's just it. You know, I mean, climate change, that's a global issue. The U.S. can do a certain amount. There is some mitigation we can do. There are some things that we can put in place to position our own country better to deal with it. But it is a global issue. The economy, again, we have such an interconnected supply chain right now. And so, you know, it's not a matter of us just, well, we are on top of things. Well, you know, if one of the parts we need comes from China and China has had to close their ports, well, that's going to affect that, you know. And so the economy is a global thing. Climate change is a global thing. COVID is a global thing. And we are just one amongst many. Now, on top of all of that, we do have this uniquely American Trumpism, anti-democracy, pro-fascism segment society, and that is uniquely American. But most of the issues we're facing really are global issues, and I think we have to be. I think we have to be aware of that. I don't think we can ignore the fact that it is global.
thank you very much, Nancy. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Listen to this and other podcasts on Omarglobal Radio, omarglobal.com. From Quebec, Canada, Omar Diaz reported.